So what they would do would be they would give one of the children, they would sell actually one of the children to the temple. And that was another way that they would be able to get money. And I mean, sadly, they would have to give up their children to the temple. Another way that they would end up in the temple was that many times these children would be sick. So these mothers would go and take these children to those fake gods. Remember the fake gods, those statues that we've been talking about? They would give them as an offering because they were sick. So then those children would stay in the temple. So Amy started finding out why and how they ended up in the temple. And she wanted to know even more. And she wanted to help these little girls, these children that were in the temple. So one day, there was this father. And this father was selling his little girl to the temple. And Amy found out about this. And Amy wanted to rescue that little girl. But in order to rescue her, the father was asking for 100 rubies. Back in the day, remember, she was born in 1867. So maybe at this age, I'm guessing if she's 30 years old, we're still in the 1800s, right? So back in the days, 100 rubies would equal up to $600. Well, Amy did have this money, but it was a lot of money. And Amy wanted to do the right thing. So Amy went over to the father and she bought off the little girl for 100 rubies. But inside of her, Amy felt like she was doing something wrong. She felt that she shouldn't have bought this little girl, that she shouldn't have taken this little girl away from her father. But she knew that if she didn't do this little girl was going to be sold to the temple. So then Amy was praying, and within her prayer, she asked God to please help her understand if she had done the right. And she actually asked God, if this is within your will, then return me those 100 rupees. Do this within a couple of days. That's going to be my sign. That's going to tell me that I've done something right for you. Well, a couple of days later, Amy receives a letter in the mail. It's from another missionary, a missionary brother that doesn't know anything about what Amy is doing. And Amy opens up the letter, and there's 100 rubies in that envelope. So at that moment, Amy knew that she had done God's will, and that gave her more courage to continue to rescue these little girls. Well, by this point, when Amy had this little girl, now she had two, remember who the other one is? The first one? Prina. So now there's Prina and the little girl. Well, shortly after, other kids that were from around the area started coming to live with her because they felt safe. Not all of them necessarily were from the temple. In particular, there was one baby that she was able to save. They were going to sell the baby over to the temple, and she was able to save the baby as well. So now she has 16 children. And because she had 16 children, she had to buy a bigger home. Well, she had to move to a bigger home. So she started praying and she started asking God for a bigger home. And God provided her with a bigger home, not only to be able to have those 16 children living within that house, but she was going to be able to have more children live there. And this house was surrounded with trees. The ocean was nearby, and actually the water from the ocean would go right below the land. And because of that, there were actually wells living below the land. And she started digging wells in order so they could have fresh water. And God provided them with fresh water. Well, you would think that Amy was doing something good, helping all these children, and she saw it as something good, and she felt that God was by her side and helping her. But not many of the missionaries that were around her felt this. She would actually tell them that she wanted to save more children, and many of them told them, no, just stay away from it, because during that time, during the 1800s, children were seen as something that was not important. It was not important to fight for them. But Amy felt in her heart that she had to fight for them, because Jesus didn't only die for the adults, but Jesus also died for the children, which is all of you guys. So God put it in her heart to continue this, and to keep bringing more children into the house. Well, she wouldn't only bring, like I said, over kids from the temple. There was actually this one girl. Her name is Jill. And Jill wanted to know more about God, but she didn't know how. Her parents had always taught her to do these offerings, to go and stand before the statues and to worship these statues. But she knew there was something more to about God, but just didn't know how to discover it. Well, one day somebody gave her a Bible. And when they gave her a Bible, she started reading the Bible. And she used to, before reading the Bible, she used to go to these statues and she would ask the statue to forgive her sins, but she always felt like the statues were never answering. So she wanted her sins to be forgiven, but at that point, she didn't know the real God. Well, once she started reading the Bible, she discovered who the real God is, and that he sent his son, which is our Lord Jesus, to die for us and to die for her. And at that moment, she opened her heart to Jesus. Well, when she opened her heart to Jesus, she had to keep it a secret. Because if she told her parents that she had Jesus in her heart, she would have gotten in trouble. And if they even found out that she had a Bible, they would have destroyed the Bible. So she had to keep the Bible a secret. Well, in order to keep the Bible a secret, she had to continue worshiping these statues, these fake gods, so her parents wouldn't find out. Well, God made her feel that what she was doing was wrong, that she couldn't be worshiping those idols, because even the Bible tells that we can't have two gods. If there's only God is a jealous God, and He doesn't share His glory with anybody. So then she had to decide on what to do, and for her, she made the decision to go live with Amy. And when she made that decision to go live with Amy opened the doors of her home. And when Amy opened the doors of her home, Jill explained to her everything that had happened to her and that now she had Jesus in her heart. So Amy let her stay. But then shortly after, her parents found out that she had left her house. And when her parents found out, everyone in her family went over to Amy's house, which is the house we saw over here, and they surrounded the house. And then when they surrounded the house, if you want to find out the rest, you have to come back tomorrow.
They were worshiping the God. I know
You know the story? Yeah? Don't spoil it. So you'll have to come back tomorrow if you want to find out what happens next. I'm just throwing it out there. Yeah, well.
Buenas tardes, bendiciones. Aquí grabando desde su Iglesia de Cristo Betel con el productor Carlitos Ortiz. Faithful life. Lo dejamos solo el domingo, bro. Nadie sabía que mi papá iba a salir. Nadie se fue con el control, todos bien. Yo ni sabía que mi papá iba a salir.
Creo que no me dijo porque yo ya le había dicho que yo vamos a matar, nadie se ve. ¿Está bien? Una Carlito.